Today in this class we are going to see about the normal flow layout. Then after that we are going to see about the beyond normal flow. What are the various positioning for this layout in normal flow processing. Okay. So in last class we see about how the HTML elements are occupied in a box. Okay, in a box model. And how that box is rendered in the web browser. Okay, so if you take different kinds of HTML elements, okay, say for example HTML body, division tag, and all these kinds have the respective boxes. Okay, and these boxes have the respective content, and if you want to change the properties of this box, okay, you can apply the box model properties. So this is the out picture of the normal flow layout. Okay, now in this class we are going to see about the beyond the normal flow, and we have various positioning the boxes. Okay, so here the CSS will allow the boxes to be positioned outside the normal flow. So if you take in normal flow we have the box model representation, and in box model representation each and every HTML element has been occupied in a boxes. Okay, if you want to change the position of the boxes, okay, so this thing can be done with the help of CSS positioning scheme. Okay, now we are going to see about the various position scheme, and we are going to see the program HTML code to create the various position scheme. Okay. So see here, what is position? The position property will specify the type of positioning method used for an element. Okay, I said if you have n number of HTML element to create a page, okay, the position will determine where the box of that HTML element will be appeared in your screen. Okay, here we have various methods are available. There are 5 different position values we are going to give for this position property. Okay, the position property means it will specify the type of positioning method used for an element. If you are having an element like a paragraph or heading tag, okay, or some other body or division tag, if you want to specify the positioning of the box, okay, then you have to use the position property. Position property has been classified into 5 categories. For example, the property has been set to position static, relative, fixed, absolute, and sticky. So now you are going to see about how these properties are plays an important role in positioning of the element. First thing, position is static. So in static, the HTML elements are positioned by static by default. That means suppose you are giving the position as static, so there is no changes in the box property, like see here the static position elements are not affected by either the top, bottom or left and right properties. If you take a box, these properties plays an important role in adjusting the box in a normal flow. If you mention the position is static, this position is here the position is not changed. Okay, how the position will be changed? By changing the top, bottom and left and right property, the position will be changed. But here if you mention static, it will not be changed. Okay, so it will flow according to the position mentioned in the normal flow of the web page. Let's see an example. Here the division tag element is used and the position is static. Okay, now see here the division has class name is static. Okay, here the static when you mention the properties property as position is static, then inside the division element, okay, we have a content, okay, and the content is occupied in a box model. That box model will not be changed. Okay, what are the other things we can do for the boxes? You can represent the border of the box. Here the border of the box is given as a 3 pixel, and this is the style of the border. Okay, it's a solid style, and we are using an hexadecimal value. This hexadecimal value will give the color of the border. Okay, so this example will tell how the position is when you're giving the position as static, there will not be no changes in the top left and right and bottom properties. Okay, now you can try this example. See here. We have the document is a HTML document, and style property is given in the style tag, and what is the body element here is body element start with H2 tag, then followed by paragraph tag, then followed by the division tag. Okay, here we are using the class properties. There is a class selector. This is static. So for this division tag content only we are going to change the property. That's why we are using div.static. Okay, then inside static we are giving the position as static class, we are giving the position as static. Okay, then what will be respective output for when you run this code? See here, and you see the heading tag followed by the paragraph element. We are not giving any properties for this paragraph element. We are given properties for H2 tag as position is static. Okay, there is no changes and all. Okay, that is it's not a property. It is in content of H2. Okay, now see, you can see the box with content. Okay, this represents the division tag content. The division tag content is this div element as position static. Okay, so by default it is an static, so there is no changes in the position of the static position of the division box model. Okay, so division there is no changes. See here, it is start with the box model start with indent top left will be 0 only. Okay, by default takes all the top left is 0. Okay, it occupies the default position. The static will say the default position of the box model. Okay, suppose if you remove this property, then again you run this model. So there is no changes happening here. See here, there is no changes happening. So what is the use of this position is it's a default property. Okay, it is a default property. Okay, for setting the position of the HTML element, which is not affected by the top, bottom and left and right properties. Okay, next thing is an element with position relative. So what is an element with position relative? It is positioned relative to its normal position. So in previous case we seen the normal flow of when you are given the position is static, but if you want to change that position, okay, by giving position value as relative, so definitely there will be some position changing with relate to the normal position. Okay, so you can set the top, right, bottom and left properties of the relative position element will cause it to be adjusted away from its normal position. So usually in previous cases there is no adjustment made by these properties, but when you mention position as relative, then you can do some adjustment with the help of these properties like top, right, bottom and left. So while adjusting the position, the other content will not be adjusted to fit into any gap left by the element. So the remaining content will not be adjusted. When you set the property with the top, right, bottom and left, then the corresponding property will be changes the behavior of the box. Okay, the other will be not be adjusted. Okay, see here, Here again you are using the DAV tag, okay, as an example. Now the position is given as a relative, and you are increasing the left indent to 30 pixel, okay, and your border is given the same value. Then try this. See here, there is some. So there is some space arises at the left side of the your normal flow, okay, normal flow content of DAV. You can see the left how it is adjusted, because you are giving the position value as relative, then you are giving left index value as 30. Okay, suppose you are mentioning as 0 pixel, then you can see there is no space arises here, okay. Similarly, you can increase the top position also, the top value by some 50 pixel, okay. So what happened, there is some initially there is some gap, margin gap between paragraph and the division tag. So the margin is the topmost layer of the box, okay. It will give the separation of this paragraph as well as division tag. Suppose if I give the top index, that is top value is increased by 50 pixel, then there will be some gap arises between the paragraph and your division tag. See here, you can note it. So that is space has been erased. So next thing is next property is position is fixed. Here, so when an element with position is fixed, its position is related to the viewport, which means it always stays in the same place. It always stays in the same place even if the pages is scrolled, okay. That the top, right, bottom and left properties are used to position the element. So again the position fixed is same as relative, but what happened here is when you are scrolling the pages, in the browser, what happened in previous case, the box along with the content is scrolled in previous case, that is position and relative, when the position is given as relative. But when you are given position is fixed, only the content which is given as a fixed will be which is placed in the same place even the pages is scrolled, okay. So a fixed element does not leave a gap in the page where it would be normally have been located. You can see how the fixed element is going to work in the web page. See here, the position is given here as fixed. The bottom value is given 0, the right is given as 0. The width is mentioned how much the content width is given here is 300 pixel. Let's try this example. Okay, you see the HTML content, again the same header content and paragraph element followed by the division tag, and we have the class name is equal to fixed. Here the position is inside the class name we are fixing the position as fixed. Okay, so here the bottom is 0 and right zero width is given as 300. So suppose if you change the width to 30 pixel, you can see what changes is arised. See here, the width of the box get reduced at the corner. Okay, so you can increase the width to see all the content inside the box. So you can see all the content inside the box. So here the result size is given a small pixel value 422 cross 256. So just reduce the content according to that size. So I have given 100 pixel. Okay, the gap is given like this. Okay, the width gap is erased here, and the content is adjusted within the box. Suppose if you are not mentioning the width, what happened? You can see. See here, the content get overlap. So what happened is the position is fixed. Okay, what happened when I scroll the page, the position of the content which is given fixed properties, it's always the same position, whereas other things are adjusted with the just according to the web page, according to the web browser view. Okay, but it's not adjusted. Okay, so that is the thing which is followed in a position is fixed. Okay, here the property like top, right, bottom and left properties is given for fixed, but what happened, the fixed element does not leave a gap in the page when it would be normally have been located. So as I said in the previous example, the first the content get overlapped with the second fixed element. Okay. So next most important thing in position is an absolute. So here what is an absolute property says is here the position is related to the nearest position, that is the nearest position ancestor. So instead of position related to the viewport, in previous case it follows the viewport method, but here it follows the nearest position ancestor. Okay, so according to the nearest neighboring ancestor, okay, the position the position of the box get displayed. Okay, here however if an absolute position element has no position ancestor, if you are not mentioning if in your source code there is no position ancestor, then it uses the document body and moves along with the page scrolling. Okay, so that is the exception here. Okay, when you are not using when your source code is not having position ancestor, it will follow the body along with the page scrolling. Okay, let's see an example how the position with absolute property is working. See here, when this is an example for relative, and this one is an example for absolute property. Here position is given as absolute. The absolute is followed by the previous division tag. Okay, let's see the code. Let's see the code. Heading tag followed by paragraph element, followed by we have a division class. Okay, and division class is followed by absolute. Okay, so what is the concept of absolute is the absolute will adjust the property when you are setting the class equal to absolute. This division block will get adjusted according to the its ancestor. Here the ancestor of this division block is the division relative. Okay, this division class relative. Okay, so what happened, it is the absolute when you are given the class equal to absolute, this division block is get enclosed in the division block which is mentioned as class equal to relative. Okay, so you can see the how when you are giving the position is absolute, it is enclosed inside its ancestor. Okay, that is the meaning. Okay, so if you simply mention position is relative, it will follow a normal flow processing, whereas when you give the position is absolute, it will not follow the normal flow. It will choose the position according to its ancestor. The ancestor here is the division. Okay, it's a division block 1. It's the first division block 1. It is second division block. Okay, it's the second division is followed with the first one. Okay, So how the property is adjusted is, you see the coding, inside the source code we have position is absolute, the top is given as 80. Suppose I gave, I'm not mentioning top is 8 pixel. See here the adjustment, you can notice the adjustment here. Just give not 8 because it gets overlapping there. See here, it takes when you are giving position as absolute and top value is 8 pixel, instead of taking the viewport of entire web browser, it takes the starting point of the previous ancestor box model and it get adjusted. Okay, see it's a 8 pixel value. Okay, just change it to 25 pixel to have a good look. Okay, so right property, the proper. Okay, you can see you can set the right property to 50, then see the changes. Okay, you can give 50 or 50px. So 50px, when you give 50px, it adjusts. See here, from the right, it your box get adjusted to the 50px value. Okay, and you can use another property like left is equal to, again you go for 50px value. See here, the left has 50px value and with this 200 pixel, and the top is 25. Okay, and the height is 100 pixels. Suppose if you want to decrease the height, you can decrease the height by 50% and see the changes. Okay, so what happened, all the things which I made changes to this division block, it will change the position with respect to the outbox division block 1. So that is the concept of absolute. Okay, so absolute means it will start from the previous box. Okay, here the previous box is relative box model. Okay, so it follows the relative box model, and from that box only the value of this property get adjusted inside the box. Okay. And last one is sticky. It is an advanced concept which is used. It is used as a position based on the user scroll position. Okay, it's an element with position sticky is position based on the user scroll position. So a sticky element toggles between a relative and fixed depending upon the scroll position. Its position relative until a given offset position is met in the viewport. Then it sticks in place like position is fixed. So what happened here, when you are giving position as sticky, it will either choose relative as well as fixed property. So when the position when you are given the relative property as a fixed value, relative property is given by top, left and right property. Okay, when it is when the position is meet, then the sticky will comes to the relative. When the position is not meet with that within the offset position, then it will switch over to the position like switch over to the property fixed. So then the concept of sticky comes into two role, that is either it becomes a relative or either it becomes a fixed. Okay, so and if you want to try to scroll inside this frame to understand how sticky position work, you can use either Internet Explorer under earlier version, okay, which actually this Internet Explorer and its earlier version which do not support sticky position, but if you are using the advanced Mozilla as well as Google Chrome, the sticky will be working, okay. See, you can this I am sticky. The example given here is the sticky property given here is the web position given web sticky, okay. It is work under Safari. It is an web browser, okay, and the position is given as a sticky. The top is given as a 0 pixel, background color is green. Now let's try this sticky, how it is working in the web page, okay. How that box model will appear for the HTML element when you are given sticky as a property, okay, position property. See here, this is given as a sticky content is I am sticky, okay, sticky content is I am sticky. The class given is sticky. The class for that position is given as sticky. Okay, what happened? You can see the when I scroll, all that the content below it's moving. But what happened to the sticky the content, the HTML division content? It remains fixed. So that means from this it works as a relative, okay. It is in relative, you are giving it's in viewport of the web page, your content is it's your content, what the content is, I am sticky is a division content is visible, okay. But what happened to other content when you are scroll the web page? See here, the sticky, it will fix. Sticky means what? It will stick to a one position. That is the meaning for sticky. See here, the content I am sticky is fixed at one point of position, okay, and remaining things has been scrolled, okay. So that is the concept of using sticky in your web coding, okay. This is an advanced technology. So it won't work in Internet Explorer. That is it won't work in Internet Explorer then, as well as earlier version do not support this kind of sticky position, and where it will be worked in Mozilla, Safari and Chrome, okay. You can notice see here, you can notice this I am sticky and the content is scrolling above, and but what happened, your the sticky content is fixed, okay. So that is the meaning, your position is fixed. So that is when you are given sticky, it will be toggled between relative as well as fixed, okay. It depends upon your scrolling position, okay. So that's a concept about various positioning schemes which is available to change the position of the box model, okay, and in box model in the normal flow processing, okay. These are the beyond normal flow concepts which is used to change the position of your boxes, okay, HTML boxes. Let's see an outsketch about all this positioning, and with some example which is given in this slide. See here, the red, the yellow, green or span element. So what is a span element is, it's you can change that element inline. These are inline elements, okay. So you can change the behavior of the inline element in a normal flow processing. So that's why you see here there is some adjustment given given as a indication like red color, yellow color and green color. The box represented is representing a relative positioning, okay, and other spans are not affected, okay. the red, yellow, green are the span element, and the box are not affected in the relative positioning. So you how to write the code for the span in your document is you have to use a span inline tag. So span inline tag followed by the slash span inline tag. Then you can set the style property is background color is red. It's an inline, so you can each and every line you can have you can use this inline element. So for your previous example, we have color is red, yellow, then lime. Okay, that is a thing, and we have a class as right, class equal to right, class equal to right. So what is the class equal to right? So if you take the class equal to right, okay, so it has the right adjustment that the text should be appear at the right. Okay, you can see here the style rules that moves the span away from the normal flow right, it moves to the right edges. Okay, so the content here is red, yellow, green has been moved to the right edges. So what the next thing is float positioning. So CSS allows for boxes to be positioned outside the normal flow. So outside the normal flow, as I said, we have float positioning like left, right, top and bottom. Okay, so by these properties we can position outside the normal flow. In normal flow we know how the how it function and how the boxes has been created for each and every element, but to change that box of each HTML element and how the HTML should be positioned inside the box, we have to use the float positioning. Okay, see here the class equal to big num, which uses the style rule that floats your content to the left side, and here what the content here for content is this text is going to wrap around the next thing is the content is I Roman letter. You are given its blank space, I big Roman numeral embedded within the paragraph because the numeral is floated here. Which is floated, the float is represented as left. So what happened, the I comes to the left, okay, starting position, okay, left side of your normal flow positioning. Okay, so to by this you can adjust the Roman numerals, you can adjust the Roman numerals to the left side. Okay, see here it is adjusted. This is the text which is given. So you are using the span. It is the span, what the functional span here is taken out of normal flow and floated to the left of its inline box. So here it is floated at the left side. Okay, because you are mentioning the float properties as left. Okay, that's why it is that's why it's positioned at the left of its inline box. Okay, so you can either change the normal flow in a two way. The basic thing is you can use the left, right and top and bottom floating position value, and you can change either block element as well as the inline element. So two ways you can change the position, either block as well as inline element. So this example says the inline element changes. That's why it changes inside your content. Okay, inline content, it is the proper by setting the float property as left, the changing is appeared. Okay, so already we have come across with the absolute position. Okay, it's another method we have discussed here. It is adjusted with your relative position. Again we are taking the span. Okay, and here what the class says here, the style rule, class name is margin node. Here the style rule that moves span relative to the upper left corner of containing the paragraph element box. Okay, so here in the margin node they set the property as upper left corner. So this paragraph second paragraph get adjusted, the paragraph content inline content get adjusted to the upper left corner. Okay, this is the starting tag of the paragraph, and this is the ending tag. Inside we have the content, and if you want to change any particular line content, you have to use the span, and how the pan changes the your floating is based upon your class value. The class says that the span is relative to the upper left corner. See here is the left corner. This is the content. You can notice the content which is changed is given with background color yellow, and it is arranged in the left side corner. Okay. So in previous case, when you are typing the paragraph, when you type that paragraph, you have all this content. Okay. When you type the paragraph, you have all this content. Okay. If you want to separate this content from here, okay, if you want to separate a content from the normal paragraph, okay, so you have to use the float positioning method, okay, and as well as the which is whether it is absolute or whether it is a relative, okay, by setting the position is equal to absolute, then you can adjust with the previous ancestor. That's why it's moved, this content gets moved to the left. Okay. So what is concept says here is the spans removed from the normal flow. So the normal flow means this content will appear in the normal flow. Why it is separated? Because we are using the position as relative to another box. You are giving the position as relative. That's why it's moved to the another box. Okay. So totally we have two boxes here. Three boxes here. 1, 2, and 3 boxes. Okay, how the 3 boxes comes from one single box is you are using the position as relative. Okay. So float we have left or right. Then in position mentioned as static, there is no left or right. Such kind of values cannot be applied. Okay. Here the element is positioned if this property is not static. Okay. So if the property is not static, then you can go for a properties, float properties like left, right, top, bottom. When you specified the position as static, it will not be changed its position. That is the concept. Okay. If you not mention the position as static, then you can apply the changes to the HTML element. Either left, right, or top, bottom can be adjusted. Okay. Here the position is given as relative and right adjustment is given as 0.25. So span content text moves to the see here that's the content moves to the left side here. When you are given the span class equal to right, so you have to see the what right class properties says for this content. Okay. Here the background color given is red, and span class equal to right. That means see here the box appear at the right side of your web page. Okay. And its length is 0.25 em. Em means emphasized text. That's why it's overlapping with your box as well as text. Okay. Suppose if you increase the indent of the text, okay, if you increase to above 1 or that is above 10 or like that, then you can note the space between your box as well as the content. Okay. So it's already we have seen what is the use of float. Okay. Here the float specifies the left, that's why it's get adjusted to the left side, and you can notice the font size of the float is double X large. Okay, that's why it get increased to double times of the size of the normal font size, and its font weight is bold. So you can say that changes. Okay. So it's an inline change. These are comes under inline concept. Okay, float positioning given for an inline element. As I already said, the absolute position will change its location. Okay, based upon the ancestor. Okay, see that's why see here this is a second paragraph as a note: padding area, margin area. When you are given the position as relative, and the margin is left is 10 em. Okay, see here we can notice there is a space between margin and your margin area and the padding edges. Okay, so by this you can adjust the by this you can adjust the position of your block element. Okay, in previous case we have seen the inline element. Now we are going to change the content inside the block element. This is an example given for a absolute, and see here the margin is left. Margin is left is given for position is relative for the paragraph. Next thing is this is second paragraph as a note. Span class equal to margin node. When it comes to the margin node, it is the class property given is a position absolute, and the top is equal to 0 and left is equal to minus 10 em, which is equal to 8 em. Background color is yellow. So what happened for this span? See, span starts from this node property is pretty long, so it could cause trouble. So that is the available content for the span. So by mentioning margin node, this span property will changes the content from this node to the trouble. See here, this node is pretty long, so it could be cause trouble. So here the background color is changed to yellow, and you can see the left end as minus 10 em, and you can see the width as 8 em, width as 8 em. Okay, so em says the emphasized text length. Em denotes the length. Okay, it's not pixel value. Em denotes here is the length of the box. Okay, the width how much length for the width. Okay, that thing is given as 8 em, and you can see the top is equal to 0. So what happened? You see the previous this is the second paragraph. Okay, what happened? The absolute will adjust to the relative position. Okay, the absolute will adjust to the relative position where the margin left is 10 em. So that's why it takes the it comes here comes to the top position. Top is equal to 0 and left is equal to minus 10 em, and width is equal to 8 em. So this margin node property is adjusted, and it's how it is adjusted? It is adjusted with position relative. It is adjusted with the previous paragraph. So it is adjusted with the previous paragraph. The previous paragraph by default it is given as a relative. You can note by default the paragraph is a relative, but what happened inside the paragraph we have mentioned the position as an absolute. That's why this content is not appeared at the beginning because initially it is appeared at the top of the page, but what happened when it comes to the second line, the spanning inline element changes the behavior of the content, behavior of this box model content. Okay, then see here given as 0, that's why it moves to the 0th position. Okay, and the remaining spaces has been occupied by the second para. This is the second para as a note. Okay, so that's why it get adjusted. So second absolute position box obscures first. What is obscures first is, so as I said in previous, the inline element obscures the first paragraph element. Similarly, you can change the text. See here, text appeared in the boxes. Okay. See here, we have Z index as one more property. If you want to draw an order for overlaid box, okay, if you want to draw an overlaid box in your page, okay, so you have to use Z index 1 for the first for the text, and here the overlay for the class overlay, you have to give, for the ID selector overlay you have to specify z index 2. That means what happened here is for z index 1, the background the color for the text is given as an yellow. You can see here all the text has been arranged from the index position 1. Okay. Next thing is here the ID selector is overlay, the position is absolute, and the top is 10 pixel and left is 10 pixel with this 1, and height is 4.5 em, border is solid red 1 pixel. What happened? You are going to draw an overlay box. Okay. So how you are going to draw an overlay box? By using this z index property. Now you are setting that z index property to value. So here how you can notice whether that boxes has been overlaid here with the help of the background color of the box, that is border is solid red 1 pixel value. So automatically all the box the indexes has been overlaid. The index is the starting position of the text. Okay, so all the text in starting position has been overlaid into a single boxes. Okay, so that thing has been represented in this slide. Okay, and last one is display and visibility. See here we have the position related property like display. When your display is when you mention display is none, then there will be no changes in your normal flow. Okay, suppose if you are giving display value, then it means that when you are giving display value, none means that the element and the descendant elements are not rendered and not affected by normal flow. So if you give any value to the display, then definitely it will be affect the normal flow, and its normal flow what happen, it will affect the element and its descendant, and it's rendered the web page, and finally it affects your normal flow. Okay, when you are specifying value for the display. So what happen when you are giving the property as visibility value is equal to true or false, then so when your visibility given as false, then it will be then what happened, the value is hidden, means that the elements and its descendant elements are not rendered, but still do not affect the normal flow. So when you are given visibility is false, it will be hidden. When your visibility is given as true, okay, then all the elements and its descendant elements are change its position, and it will affect the normal flow. So these things should be take into account when which HTML element which HTML element normal flow behavior should be displayed, and it should be visible to the end user. Okay, so that is full concepts regarding normal flow and normal flow positioning schemes and the floating position scheme, which support the normal flow, support the positioning methods like static, relative, absolute, fixed and sticky. Okay. So last thing, we are going to see a demo about this positioning scheme. First we can go for how to float an element. So to float an element, we need we have to change the left, right and bottom properties of an element. So first you can see the demo of volume,
div 1 block element right here, and this div 2 block element. But before we do that, let's talk about the...
So here the author will say about the HTML element division paragraph. Inside division 2 we have 3 paragraph and one more header element. So how the author going to apply the property of floating and how the floating property will change the normal behavior, will change the normal flow behavior of this web page. Okay, listen to this
flow again. And remember, I touched upon that subject a few videos ago. And remember, if we don't put any widths in our elements, the browser will paint those automatically from left to right. And that's called the flow. It's a very natural thing. So the first one gets painted right here, then there's a line break, and then the second element gets painted. And then as we see, there's some paragraph elements within this block element. Everything's a nice and natural flow. Now we're going to interrupt that and float these two elements. So essentially what we're doing is we're overriding the browser, if you want to think of it like that, and we're telling the browser where we want to place the element. Now let's go ahead and float the first element. Now in order to float an element, the first rule is that you need to give the element a width. If you don't give it a width, well then the browser is just going to go ahead and expand that out itself. The browser does all the work. So let's do that in the first div here, and we'll put in a width of, let's make it 300 pixels. And then we're going to use the float property, of course, and we will float this left. And so let's go ahead and save this, and let's refresh this, and you can see now this is pinned to the left. And that's the nice thing about floating an element. You can pin it to the left. Now this other element here is getting rendered because it's next on the list, and it's going to fill up this space, and this is being done by the browser. We haven't actually put in a width or float here, so the browser is actually doing this for us. And so now let's go ahead and pin div 2 to the right. And so we'll just copy and paste this, and we'll give it the same pixel count, only we're going to go ahead and float this to the right, and we'll save this, and there you see. Now I'll explain why this element here just took up the center space, and this will actually correspond to how the flow works with floated elements. So now you can see we've got the div 2 to the right and the div 1 to the left. Now one thing this allows you to do is put block elements side by side. Remember, that won't happen if we let the browser paint it for us. In other words, if we use the flow. So that's one thing floating allows you to do. It allows you to put block elements side by side. And it also allows you to always keep an element pinned to the left side and an element always pinned to the right side. It will always be there no matter what. So if we resize this, you can see it always stays pinned to the left. Now the first question you might be asking is, well, why did the browser put this header block element, which we didn't float by the way, this is still in the flow if we want to call it that, and you might be asking, well, why is this here? And the answer to that is, think of it this way, when you float an element, you are interrupting the flow. And so think of it almost like the browser doesn't even really know about it. It's almost like he's going to paint this header element, and then this space right here is between this header 1 element and this header 2. These two, the div 1 and the div 2, are outside the flow now. So he only really knows about the header 2. So he's naturally going to go ahead and paint this between these two elements. Now sometimes you may want that effect, and we will get into that when we do the CSS layout series. And actually in this video I don't want you to worry about coding. We're going to be floating elements when we get to the CSS layout series. I just wanted you to understand how to code it and the concept. Now one way to get this back down here is to put a percentage in here. And let's put in 50%, and I will show you what happens. And then let's just go ahead and put this in the other div as well. And let's save this, let's hit refresh, and there you can see. Now what this did was we said, hey, take up 50% of the page in terms of width, and we did that for the div 2 element as well. And so this element now is pushed down here, but you'll notice there's no line break here, because once again these two elements are outside the flow, so the browser won't put in that line break. The line break, he only really knows about the header 1 element, so he puts a line break here. There is no div 1 and div 2 element. We are in control of those elements with the flow. Now a couple more points before we close this video. You will also...
So what the author says here is, see here, when you are giving the division block property, there is a floating point property. Here is float is left. For both, for division block 1, the float is left, and width is given as 300 pixel. And again the author changes to division block 2 in, into float property, right, and width is the same as 300 pixel. So author conclude from this session is what the author says here is so it will while giving the width as a pixel value. So in web browser, all the elements are arranged in a pixel representation only. If you take any point, that will comes into a pixel value. Okay, that is it start with the zeroth position, and so last thing. So it depends upon the browser screen size. Okay, and the resolution. The pixel has a maximum numbers. Okay, like 1000, it's above 1000, like that. Okay, so what happened here, when you give the width as in pixel representation, and your float is given as left and right, the normal block which is grouped in the box is adjusted. See, here you can notice the first block is adjusted with the left. Okay, it's left, it's margin. If you take the block element, the division block element, and its margin, adjust this box into your left side. Whereas here in the division 2, we have the width portion is given as 300. Okay, then the float is given as right side. So ultimately what happened, you think that this division block should come here, but here all the thing comes into the idea of this web browser settings. Okay, based upon the browser behavior, the header property of second H2 it comes inside this occupy these spaces. Okay, so it's not a good thing because we ordered an element like header 1, division 2, division 1, division 2, then header 2. So if so to make your HTML in correct order, instead of giving the width in a pixel value, you go for a percentage value. So what is the purpose of percentage values? In the percentage gives the division in column wise. Okay, not it takes the pixel, it gives in a percentage. So that's why it's in a concept like frame, how we represent the web page division with the help of rows and column. Rows is given as some percentage and column is given as some percentage, so that the web is divided web page is divided properly. Likewise, you can represent the division 1 block as well as division block 2 in a percentage. Okay, so automatically what happened when you change that property in a percentage, so you will get the proper arrangement of the HTML element, that is header 1, division 1, division 2 and division 3. Okay, so this is the example for an float property saying left and right. Next things we are going to see about the relative positioning element.
In this video, we're going to take a look at relative positioning, and we have examined pretty much every type of positioning so far except for relative. So we'll go over that in this video. Now, to understand relative positioning, we also need to talk about static positioning and absolute positioning as well. Now, we've already talked about absolute positioning and we've already talked about static. Now, you may say, wait a minute, when did you talk about static positioning? I haven't heard of that term yet. Well, we have talked about it. It's the default positioning the browser sets for an element. And so it means it's in the flow, and we've talked all about the flow. So static is the flow. So we already know what that's all about. And right now, if you take a look at the web page, all of these elements, the body, the div, the paragraph elements, this div, and its paragraph elements are all in the flow. By default, they are all static because I have not specified that they are relative. I have not specified an absolute position. So by default, everything is in the flow, and that's a good thing. Now, just to emphasize that point, let's go ahead and put in a position, a static position for this square down here. And you're going to see that it doesn't move. So we'll do that over here, and we'll just put in static. Let's go ahead and save this. Let's refresh our page. and you can see it didn't move because it already was in static. That's the default, so we're not accomplishing anything by doing this. So let's go ahead and remove that and save this. Now, relative and absolute positioning are pretty much the same thing. They use the same properties: a top, a bottom, a left, and a right. And same thing for absolute: top, bottom, left, right. And you will remember when we did the absolute positioning, when we put a pixel count here, so if we say 10 pixels from the top, it'll move it down 10 pixels from the top. If we said 10 pixels from the left, it'll move it 10 pixels from the left. Now the way this works, you rarely will use all four of these properties. You will either specify a top or bottom and a left or right, but not all four. So you'll pick one top or bottom, and then you'll pick one left or right. So for instance, for relative, which we're going to start out first, we'll take a top and a left. We'll specify that. And so let's do that now. So I created an ID for the square, so let's go ahead and update that here. And I'll just copy and paste this in here. So that's what we're doing. We're going to put in a position of relative, and we're going to say 5 pixels from the top and 5 pixels from the left. And let's go ahead and put that in for our paragraph right here, our red paragraph here, because I created an ID for that fourth paragraph. So let's go ahead and copy and paste the same parameters, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and save this. Let's refresh this. And there you can see it moved a little bit. But actually this pixel thing got lopped off in my copy and paste, so let's go ahead and put that in here. And we'll save this again, sorry about that. And we'll refresh this, and there you can see. Now, the way relative positioning works, and here's the key point: position determined by first static element it touches. So in this case, so let's take a look first at the paragraph, and it's actually the same thing for the square. Both of these ran into the first static element, which was this paragraph on the top. So it is 5 pixels down from the edge of this paragraph static element, okay, that's in the flow. And it's also 5 pixels from the left of the div, which is a static element, right? Our main one, we haven't put any positions in here, so this is by default static. So again, it hits this paragraph static element, and then on the left, it hits the div. And so that's relative positioning. It's relative to the static elements around it. And so that's the big difference between relative and absolute. Read this statement right here: position determined by first non-static element. So what does that really mean? Absolute will pay absolutely no attention to any static element. So it will ignore all of these paragraphs and even the divs themselves because they are static. It will only render against the browser window actually because everything is static. It won't even pay attention to the body because the body is by default static. And to emphasize that point, let's switch this to absolute. Now we're just going to play around with the square now. So let's get rid of...
Okay, what the author illustrates here is, so author changes the square of the square position, which is given in the division block, okay. Here the division is ID is equal to square, okay, and what the property for the square is given is height and width is 25 pixels respectively. That's why a square is created, a square box is created with background color is red, that is it's filled with red, okay. And the author initially says that all the thing is static because why it's static, we are not mentioning position colon is position colon static. How it is by default it adjusts within web browser setting, okay. That's why if you are giving the content for the HTML, it will take the default positioning. The default positioning means you are not specific. You are not going to change the default positioning with top, left, right, or bottom property, okay, floating point property. But when you are setting the position is relative, okay, you can say you can change the adjustment. See here in square as well as in para, there is a fourth para for the first block, okay, is given position is relative and the color is red, okay. So so the author has given given this relative floating point property. That's why the position is changed now with normally this is the position, okay. See, you can see there is some gap between the previous para and this corresponding the next para. So what happened, the left side has 5 pixel increases and the top has increased to 5 pixel. Okay, that is a use of position is relative, and in both text as well as in the square. Okay, you can apply position is relative, and you can see the changes in the position. Okay. Next thing is author says, so if not having if your position is absolute, then if you're not having any relative ancestor, so what happen is it will choose the default as default position from body. Okay, so when the default position body is taken by the your position is absolute. When your given position is absolute, when there is no relative, relative paragraph content, okay, then by default chooses the body positioning. That is a demo
of the position parameter for our paragraph. Let's save this and keep an eye on the square. We're just going to switch this to absolute, and we're going to save this. We're keeping the same properties, so let's go ahead and refresh this, and boom, look at that. It's now rendering up against the browser window. That's because, like I said, all of the elements within our page are static, so it won't pay attention to anything in our HTML document. It will render
the absolute meaning when you are not having any property, your ancestor has not, if you do not have any ancestor, it will take the body as its ancestor. See here, position is absolute, but where your element in division element in the division block is square, but it takes the position at the top corner, because the body the body start from the topmost topmost of your web page. So that's why your square is shifted to a position is adjusted to the topmost body positioning. Here top is 5 pixel and left is 5 pixel. So the top is, you can see a small gap here, that is the top is given as 5 pixel. Okay. So by this I want to say you can adjust the position of your HTML element, HTML box element with help of the position like absolute, relative and fixed. Okay. Thank you.